Okay, so before the panel, I'll ask them to introduce themselves to you. I want to just give you a little bit of background of how this sort of session came about. Edwards and Finn, Tom Finn at Edwards and Finn, who sadly can't be with us today, almost 3 years ago now, I think, put together a panel of commercial leaders in meetings and events, including these amazing ladies here. And I think that was just because it was recognised then that, you know, meetings and events is the poor relation to bedrooms, and why is that? And we need to do something about it. And in January of this year, Edwards and Finn published a white paper, which was the result of 2 years of 5 meetings, I think, over that 2 years, and discussing different areas of meetings and events, talking about the KPIs, talking about the technology that's available, talking about the culture within our businesses and how where M&E sits within that. As I say, the white paper was published at the beginning of this year, and from that, since then, we've had 3 more meetings this year with the group. One to talk about the education and training part, which is where HOSPA got involved, and where the group decided that they wanted an accredited course via HOSPA around the revenue management for meeting space. Then there was another meeting where we discussed KPIs, and then there was another meeting where we discussed the technology that's available for this area. So Tom Finn deserves a shout out for kick-starting all of this. And also Heather Hart, who must be in the room somewhere. Again, I can't see anything, but I'm sure she's here. Where are you, Heather? She's over there. Perfect. So, and again, I think for many of you that are working in this area, you know that Heather has always been very passionate about the meeting space and making sure that we get our seat at the table, if you like. So thank you to both of those people to really pushing this and to get to where we are today, where we are sitting on a main stage at a huge conference, being able to talk about the importance of your meeting space within your business, and you know, why it is so important and why it gets overlooked. I'm just going to refer to my notes now because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves, and just first of all ask you why it was that you decided to first join this commercial leaders group and help really promote the need for revenue management and more acknowledgement and recognition for the meeting space sector. So I'll start with you, Angela.
Yep, it's great to be part of this discussion, and equally to join the group that discusses revenue management in meetings and events. I'm at Edgbaston Stadium, and we are definitely the poor relation to the sports. And for me, it's about joining a group of like-minded people so I could help rebalance that in my workplace of the importance of meetings and events.
Yeah, carry on. Sorry, Danielle, carry on.
So I'm Danielle, I'm the M&E Director for Clermont Hotel Group, and for me, I think it was the first dedicated M&E event. Anything else that I'd been to was rooms with a little bit of M&E. Yeah. And so my commercial director at the time was like, this is just pure M&E, do you want to go? And I was like, 100%, just to meet like-minded people and people in a role similar to mine. Yeah. Because at that point, I didn't really know anyone else that did the same role as me in a different group. Yeah. It's more of expanding my circle, and so we can bounce ideas off each other, and yeah, just to get a bit more focus on M&E solely me.
Excellent. Thank you.
Christine Wassell, Senior Director Meetings and Events for Radisson Hotel Group. I think very similar actually is that you don't often find within many of the sort of larger groups roles like ours that really focus around driving meetings and events, the structure and the revenue focus. And so really to try and get a group of people together that will drive that forward and come up with some new initiatives, and really wanted to focus, I think, around how do we get meetings and events heard? How do we really understand what we're all measuring? And so I think it was a really great initiative, and we've all come on board and had very, very similar ideas. And of course, the training's come out of it this year, which is really phenomenal. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
I'm Amy Russell. I'm the longest title ever, Assistant Director of Groups, Meetings and Events within Meetings and Events for PPHE, or as we are better known, Park Plaza Hotels, UK and Europe. I accidentally fell into this group, to be honest, but my speciality within my role is actually the back end of meetings and events, which is probably very sort of underutilised, and it's about the integrations, the technology, and I think that as a group we had a lot of things that were going on within different hotel chains, and so for me it was really interesting to come together to talk to like-minded people about that space. So yeah, and also the events were always at such lovely hotels, so I thought, well.
So why do you think, and I think in the white paper, the way that it was described was that you are operating in the shadows of bedrooms. So why do you think that it's time, why do you think that that's what happens and that it's time now for you to come out of the shadow?
I think it's a mixture of things.
Yeah.
I think, one, you haven't got the specialists in that subject to push it forward. And I think it's, if you haven't got those people pushing the messaging forward, and obviously the revenue management of that, it can often just be left to the side, and it ends up with people who have got enough to do in terms of just planning and coordinating events without having to then put a strategy in place that complements the bedroom side of things. So I would definitely say that it's not having the right people in role to make sure that it is pushed forward and in those conversations, for sure.
Do you feel like you're in the shadow? Ladies at that end.
I think certainly the revenue stream of meetings and events is in the shadow. And I think often what you see is that people kind of class M&E as just M&E without really, and I think it was Peter Heath, I don't know if he's still here, that mentioned it this morning about the whole group rooms piece. And we've got to really consider that meetings and events is both bedrooms and meetings. And in some instances, that can be, 20% of your rooms mix. But we forget about that somehow. And I think to start getting a movement of senior managers and directors within, the various different sort of hospitality companies helps us to drive that forward and to get the whole total M&E recognised as a revenue stream, and to get experience and get people to have a career in meetings and events, which I think previously has never really existed.
No.
Yeah, I think from our side as well, there's just been, sometimes I feel there's a lack of credibility within our segment because we aren't supported with the correct technology or the correct infrastructure. We all benchmark very differently. We all have different KPIs. So I think COVID really was a huge catalyst in the technology advancing in a very quick amount of time. So I think that has allowed us to all suddenly be like, okay, we need to really get on board with this. It's almost like the start of, where we were with bedrooms, when bedrooms went online and booking.com really took off. I feel like we're in this really exciting space with meetings and events where, the technology and groups like this and sort of leadership forums like this have pushed things forward, and we're at a space now where over the next 12 months things are going to look completely different, and we're going to have a very serious space at the table where it's going to be taken as a very serious segment.
Yeah, because there's a lot of opportunity there that I think we all have acknowledged gets missed quite often, and money left on the table. I think, Danielle, you mentioned benchmarking, and we did have a quite in-depth meeting.
A lively meeting.
Talking about KPIs.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so when we did the very first session on KPIs, 2 years ago, it was very lively and it became very apparent that we were all doing something different. And at that meeting, we didn't really come away with a solution. We all wanted to use a different measurement, or people didn't have the tech to do the different measurements that other people were adopting. And I think when we came around to this second round of meetings for this year, we all agreed that if we are going to advance forward, we need an agreed metric. If you think about bedrooms, STR is just the agreed way that we measure rooms performance. When you get a new hotel, it's a standard that you put STR in, and that's how we measure how well we're doing. How can we expect tech providers to produce something if we can't all agree on what the actual measure is? So we did it very democratically. So we had a day where we went through what are all the available options.
Danielle was the queen.
I was keen not to be a dictator. It's a democratic way of doing it. But there's lots of different metrics for M&E as well. That's one of the problems. It's great we've got all this data, but almost there's too much and you can't focus in what's going to make the difference. So we had a very democratic vote. We said, what are we using now? What do we understand? What's easily accessible for everyone, and that you necessarily don't need a tech system to do, because it's got to be easy to adopt by everyone. And then we came out with 5 core metrics, which we as a group in the room agreed that we're going to use moving forward. So they're really like what we class as basic ones, really. There's nothing new or weird or wonderful in there. So you've got your revenue per square metre, your revenue per delegate, per event, conversion rates. So there's a little bit of a mixture of how you're doing in terms of a revenue performance, but also how your team are doing. So we've got conversion rates, lead time responses, because that's something that we're all really tasked quite heavily on. And to be fair, there's probably 6 or 7 more that we knocked out of the conversation, which are great to supplement those metrics. But we just wanted to start with the 5 that we thought everyone could easily adopt. And then if we're all measuring in the same way, at least then we can get some benchmarking going, because at the minute in M&E, what does good look like is different in every group. And so that was the main reason for wanting to get some agreed metrics across the board, which I think we got agreement on at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, we did.
And so now our plan is that everyone who is in these sessions, that we're going to take them back to our own hotel groups, and we're going to start implementing those. And then we're going to reconvene next year and see how that's going. And then try and get that messaging spread more widely. So we're going to do some webinars in the new year, aren't we, where we go through them, probably try and get on the Beam or MIA and try and do some sessions around those metrics.
Excellent. And Angela, do you see the same sort of metrics? Because all that we keep talking about bedrooms, and obviously you don't have bedrooms. So do you have the same challenges with your metrics?
Yeah, we absolutely do have the same challenges, and also it's not the sexy part of the business. The sports will always grab the headlines internally and externally. And I think that the problem that a lot of stadia faces is they have such great spaces, but actually the whole organisation doesn't understand how to yield it and get the most out of it. So we definitely do face challenges where we're under-resourced, but actually it's conference and events that keep the lights on in between match days, and seasons finish in sports, and we've got to keep that stadium open all year round. But it also contributes towards community. When we've got our stadium open and we've got a big event on for local schools in the area, it's great for that whole stadium-wide ethos that they're trying to fulfil. So we factor into a lot of the areas of the stadia business as a whole.
Right, good. I think, like you've said, Danielle, we agreed as a group, or you agreed, not me, I'm not really involved with it.
Not me solely, the group.
We agreed. KPIs were agreed, but I think one of the other points that came out from that meeting and from the white paper before was the inconsistency, and you've mentioned it, the inconsistency of data as well, and what's available. And I think Amy's mentioned already that the tech stack is improving, and there are lots of new opportunities now. But what do you think the biggest challenges have been so far with the technology that's available within the meetings and events area from the revenue management perspective, and where do you see that going?
I think certainly from our side is meetings and events has been so far behind technology from a rooms technology perspective that we're really catching up. But I think, like you said, Amy, it's going to move, and I think in terms of the landscape of what that will look like in 12 months and in 18 months is going to be completely different. And it's good to see that I think we're all now starting to include various different levels of technology. And I think if we go back to sort of, I guess, what we all consider, we have a basic PMS and an S&C system, and that only gives you a certain amount of data, so where you were talking about data. So we all have various different manual sort of spreadsheets or different internal systems that we measure and try and take that forward. And I think that's where technology needs to start coming in, so that we have the consistency on the KPIs, the consistency in the benchmarking. And in addition to that, how we then use, we've all sat in, I think, various different AI sort of seminars today, how we're all using that. And individually, we're all using it in different ways, and it is helping us.
And how much from the revenue, for the data, how much of that is human intervention versus the data that's available with the tech when it's the inaccuracies? Is there...
think there's two areas for M&E with that tech piece. You've got the people and the
Yeah.
process side, which is really labour intensive. And if you think about your M&E coordinators, that's a hard job. So we expect them to be sellers, planners, and also do all this loading, and it's very manual. So there's that bit which we need a lot of help with in terms of AI. But then in terms of the revenue management side, if you think about bedrooms, you've got great systems like Ideas G3 that's got algorithms around pricing. We have nothing like that. So we have to, it's very manual in terms of those processes for revenue management. It's lots of comp set calling. There's not a real flow of data where you can make price decisions quickly and easily. So there's almost two areas, I think, isn't there? There's the people and then the revenue management side, all of which there's always solutions coming forward. But I think as well in M&E, there's a lot of fear around some of the technology.
Okay.
Not so much from our side, I don't think, because we want the solutions. But I think if you look at things like Instant Book, so Rooms has had that for 20 years. We've now got it, but there's a lot of resistance in the moment to that.
Client resistance.
And it's things like, we were having a conversation with Noland earlier, we can give you a plug-in and I'm very fearful, and we're quite fearful in M&E, I think, of the change.
Yeah.
But we understand that we need to get in line with Rooms. We've done these things in Rooms for years, so why would we not do it with M&E?
Yeah, it's true. And actually, if I go back to my career, like when I first went to supplier side, it was my role, it was my job at that time with what was Travel Click to introduce dynamic pricing to hotels around Europe. And everyone said this will never take on. Like, no, there is no way that people are going to pay different prices for the same product on a different day of the week or a different night of the year. And look where we are now. So things do change, but that was 20 years ago or more. So, yeah, it takes time.
Yeah.
But there's that fear at the beginning. But then we have to step forward and we have to trial it, right? So, Angela, you're using a trial on a new tech system. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so we're on a trial with Hiver and Ivy, our booking system. And what that's going to do is have an AI agent scanning all of our RFPs that come in and qualifying them for us. So it will be able to recognise what's an RFP, what's not one, whether it's been a repeat booker, if its dates are flexible. So there'll be a lot of qualifying questions, and it will give that RFP a score. If the score is over a certain number, which we predetermine, it will go straight over to our coordinators. If it's not, and often we deal with inquiries that are probably not going to ever confirm with us. We're not city centre based, we're often a wild card. Sometimes Stadia is, let's just see how different that is to the hotel around the corner. So this for us is removing another distraction of hundreds of inquiries that are going to come in that are probably never going to confirm with us. So it gives our coordinators back the time to do what they do best, which is consultative selling with inquiries that would fit our stadium really, really well. So that's exciting for us.
Yeah, and we're similarly using Hiver as a tool, which is quite interesting because it's slightly different way. So again, on email AI, we're feeding all our emails straight into our system so that the teams don't have to literally read the email, understand it, understand how many bedrooms, how many meeting rooms, who's the client, and it's automatically populating. It finds the client in our database, it adds the number of bedrooms, the dates, the meeting rooms. So at that point, they can just pick it up and then go ahead and quote. With the next stage that we're looking at, I think very similar by the sounds of things, is how do we auto-propose for the smaller events so that we're not spending that time, because we all know that all the smaller events, they might take up the time, but they don't deliver the revenue. And so you want your teams working on the larger pieces that need more client interaction. And so we're trying to then do exactly that, to say, right, okay, we'll automatically deny and automatically propose all of the smaller pieces to give us some of the efficiencies for the larger events.
And talking of small meetings and those small pieces of business, do you use online booking tools for those small meetings? And how have you found those? Because I'm sure there'll be hoteliers out in the audience now thinking, I don't know if this is, do we want to do this? Do we want online booking for meeting space? We've got no control then if we put that out there. So Amy, how does it work for you?
Yeah, I think at the start it is terribly daunting. It was solely my role. I was brought in to develop the online meeting and event product for Park Plaza. And at the start, I was very much trying to champion it on my own and move it forward on my own. And I quickly realised that this is a journey and it takes all areas of the business that have to be involved in it along the journey with you in order for everybody to sort of be on board with it and be successful with it. I think that, I mean, we work with a channel manager partner that are based in the Nordics, and their sort of success rate is that that part of the world have taken up with it very quickly. You know, they're very, very keen to book online, and actually they book events for up to about 100 people, you know, online in those countries now, and they don't have any issues with it at all. I think the UK is a little bit, we're probably maybe about 6-7 months behind where that is. But again, we're still developing the technology for the agents, which is a huge part of the business, to be able to have a seamless process of booking their chunk of small events. That the agencies also don't want to be dealing with this. They want to be dealing with the nice juicy parts of the client's business. So it's supporting that side of it as well, and making sure the technology fits that piece of the puzzle. So it's an evolving journey, but I mean, we are there, and the direct customers, so we see a lot of the bookings, about 75% of our bookings actually come in after office hours. Yeah. And it's generally people that have a company credit card, so PAs, EAs, things like that, that have been tasked with booking a meeting in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And that for us has been a huge success. So now the next sort of revolutionary part of it is the agency part. So we're working closely with people like Venue Directory and those technology partners to ensure that when we go to market with this for the agents, that it is a seamless process. But yeah, it's taken a couple of agents to very bravely step forward and say, we will test this. So yeah, hats off to them. And I think once that is a complete process, then it's really gonna, yeah, revolutionize how we work. And it's gonna take away a lot of these, you know, these boring mandatory jobs that, you know, the teams don't want to be doing. They want to be going on educational courses. They want to be learning about what's new. They want to be coming and speaking to the customers and developing all of that side of it. And they can't, because they're just like robots processing. And it's,
will keep people in the industry that way. If you think about the way that I got to this, I was a reservationist and then a revenue manager, so I never did that coordinator role. I did it through COVID, and it was grueling. It's very mundane, and you do realise how we don't keep people in the industry. It's probably got a 2-3 year cycle. And I think the course that we want to do is really making sure that we can keep people and go, okay, well, there's an actual path through. So if you become a coordinator, you could be an M&E manager and then an M&E revenue manager. So there's an actual career path through. Because I think when we all first met, we were all suffering from this drain after COVID. Yeah. Everyone left. Yeah. And we're probably going through that cycle again now because we're in the 4-year period. So it has got a cycle. I think if we can take those mundane jobs away that are quite grueling and time consuming, I think we'll keep people
I think we have to provide, we have to provide a career, and we have to, I think, make M&E sound sexy and be sexy in terms of it. There is a lot there to learn, and it's very exciting. And I think what we've all seen is I think like all areas of the hotel industry, is finding skilled staff is almost, I'm going to be honest, non-existent. So you're building your own workforce from graduates or people that have worked in other industries, and you're having to provide, you know, a career. And within Radisson, we've got, the way we're working is we have cluster offices. So I've got 10 offices around the whole of Europe with 150 staff. And you've got to try and then provide some form of career path for them that gives them the knowledge and the experience. And up until, you know, we discussed the course that we're looking to build, there is nothing out in the market for them to be accredited on that effectively goes across different hotel chains. No. We all do internal. So from every single one of us, we'll all do internal training, but nothing that you would recognise that is meetings and events, and that supports you as an individual, which is why I think it's, you know, so essential.
Yeah, absolutely. Angela, did you want to add something?
Just exactly that. It's the training. So we will train our teams how we operate in our business, but what we're going to have soon is the ability to say this is how it is everywhere, exactly as Christine said. I did the HOSPA revenue management for hotels at the beginning of last year, and I was the only person in my classroom that didn't have a hotel because I couldn't find anything that was specific for conference and events, and I was able to translate it, and I did quite well in it.
You did very well.
Thank you.
You did very well.
But it just showed that there was a massive gap in there, and how I speak to my teams and about KPIs would be different to how Danielle does, and this is what's going to standardise it and bring it all together.
Yeah, we were saying earlier that there is this generation, I think now, where they love the meetings and events segment, but they feel like there's perhaps not a clear career path with it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of excitement around meetings and events revenue, because with an accreditation and with more learning and development, that allows them to, you know, still be in a segment that they love, but also in a revenue forum as well. So they get a bit of, you know, different parts of the business and the best of both worlds. So yeah, I think the newer generation coming up are seeing that there's this need for this sort of part of the business, but not just to fall into that job, actually choose it as a job and get proper training for it.
Because we've all fell into it, haven't we, really?
Yeah, I was like you, I was in revenue, and you,
Yeah.
with all respect, then you kind of go, oh, I quite like
Yeah.
meetings and events.
Yeah,
There's a little bit more to it. It's a bit meatier, and so I think we all did, yes.
Yeah. I think, well, because I fell into revenue management for bedrooms, and at that time, revenue management, the meeting space in the hotel that I'm thinking of, we had 2 bedrooms that had Murphy beds. You know, the beds that went into the wall. Yeah, older people in the room might remember this. And there were 2 bedrooms that had Murphy beds in the wall. And I remember my first day was my first reservations manager's role ever, my first. And the lady that ran C&B, as we called it then, she said, oh, you've got that room like 101 and 103, but if I sell them, I get the revenue. And I just went, oh, okay. I was like, I had no idea what was going on. And I apologised to Mr. Vora, who might be in the room, because that was your hotel at the time. And I was like, yeah, okay, have the revenue. And it took me a little while to go, oh, hang on, these are my bedrooms. I want that revenue. And then there was this always, this fight between us about who got the revenue. But that was as far as it went, when we thought about revenue management for meeting space. I mean, we were struggling then to just introduce revenue management for bedrooms. And this was before the internet, the old days of black and white. So we didn't even think about revenue management so much then for bedrooms. But if I think about falling into revenue management for rooms, which has been my journey, I think, to be fair, meetings and events is so much sexier because you've got, bedroom is a bedroom is a bedroom, and I've got a certain amount of, product to sell, but I might have different room types, but really it's just a bedroom. Whereas you've got a meeting space and a box like this, to use Peter's expression from earlier, but look at the opportunity, and also for working in your areas. It's like, if I sell a bedroom, okay, it might be a romantic getaway or it might be a family sort of holiday or something, but you're looking at different types of events, all sorts of different areas, and I can understand why your staff and members of the team want to stay in this, working in meetings and events, but want to see that progression as to where do we go from the more commercial side, if you like, rather than being in ops.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Sales all the time because it's seen as the progression because there just isn't those roles, and so they go, oh, I've got to be a proactive salesperson, which is great for our sales team. They get some great people, but you can't really argue that, well, they've done it for 3-4 years and I can't, unless you're the manager, and those don't come about that often because there's only so many manager positions. But yeah, you're right, it's keeping people excited and in it, really. And
it sort of brings us back to the whole people part of this, and we've mentioned a bit about the education side of things. It's like, how do you, what do our people need, do you think, going forward to, it's not a sales pitch, but what do our people need for this how is this going to work?
There's a couple of areas, isn't there? So you've got your revenue managers who are on the HOSPA courses and they're doing their room side, and that's what I was, but I was lucky that I was a single site revenue manager of a conference centre, really. It was a conference centre with a lot of beds. So I fell into it that way, but in a lot of people, they wouldn't have any responsibility for it. And so it's maybe getting people in revenue to go down the direction of revenue management. And then you've got our actual staff who are in it and living and breathing it and want to continue through it. So there's 2 sets of people really that we could target to keep them interested in the M&E side of the revenue management, I think.
And I think these courses that come about need to be able to cater for all levels in conference and events, so we can put our coordinators and planners on there, because you can't just tell a team member, oh, this is a new KPI and this is how we need to track it. They need to understand it, they need to buy into it, otherwise it's just not going to land and it's not going to be able to stay sustained. So I do think these courses shouldn't just be reserved for the managers, it should be at all levels throughout the business, so we're all talking the same thing.
And I think if we're going to provide a career path, I think we have to do that. That's a uniform sort of, I guess, recognised like we were saying, the accreditation, I think, is a really key thing, is because as much as we all want to keep team members for a longevity within our own company, we have to be realistic that not everybody these days is prepared to travel, move, and so therefore you might not be able to provide that right from sort of, you know, your entry level up to your sort of manager and director level. And if we've got that recognised sort of training, it means it's much easier to be able to go, okay, yes, I have a team member that perhaps has worked at a different company, but they've done this. So I know and I can trust that that recognition of knowledge is going to be there. And repetition. I think we all know that you can't just roll out a training course and expect every single team member to go, oh, yes, I've got it. It's that repetition consistently of talking to them and getting them to understand the next steps and why we make those decisions. And there's a lot of decisions in meetings and events that we make from a revenue perspective, and there are reasons behind it.
I think the problem is as well, we've all got completely different job titles, but all probably do pretty much the same, on different levels the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem, that if everyone's got a different job title, it's hard when you're recruiting people to know, well, what does that mean they do? Or so I think that standardisation of title would really help as well.
Absolutely. Like, who's the revenue manager? Who's the revenue management strategy person for your meeting space? Is it your rooms, like your revenue director? Do they do room? Because again, we find on the revenue management courses that we run at HOSPA, with the learners that come on, one of the questions on, you know, one of the assignments at one level is about total revenue management. And it's like, I will say to the group, out of interest, and I've got maybe 15 learners on the call, and say, out of interest, how many of you are responsible for any other area apart from bedrooms in your hotel? And honestly, I'm lucky if 2 people. They are bedroom focused, that's what they do. They are revenue, they might be director of revenue, again, depends what their title is, but it's the same job, but they are bedroom revenue managers, and they have no crossover into food and beverage, meeting space, spa, golf, which obviously is an area we've heard today that needs a lot more development there, a lot more opportunities. So again, it's like, how do we bring this recognised position? Like, do we need more help from above? Is it, we've talked a lot about junior people coming through. Do we need more recognition from above as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think that the sort of the senior managers, the senior leaders, I think there's always, you know, again, a lot of priority on the bedroom side of it. And I think that, you know, we are very fortunate within our company. We have a meetings and events revenue pricing team, and there's actually 3 people in that team, and they deal with sometimes a little bit to do with the bedrooms, but predominantly just with meetings and events for about 16 hotels. And having them at the table in monthly commercial meetings, you know, stakeholder meetings, owners meetings, that has made a huge difference to our business. And also changing the format of a lot of these meetings and having meetings and events go first, that has had a big impact as well. So yeah, I think like having that network, but they don't have a big network to go to when they go to traditional revenue management, you know, teams or things like that if they need support. So yeah, it's a gap, definitely.
It's the key stakeholders, isn't it? So I'm always really lucky that the companies that I've worked in understand the value of it, and I've had roles created because they understood it was an area that we needed to move into. And I think we're all in companies that believe in that because we're all here. But I think it's, if you're in a smaller group, and cost is a thing as well of these roles, you need to be able to prove ROI on them and things like that. But the more metrics that we can have to prove that, it all feeds into each other.
So it just brings us back to those metrics again, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. So on that note then, if you had to the hoteliers in the room who maybe at the moment are not focusing enough on their meetings and events from a revenue management perspective, if you had to give them one metric that you would say, right, go back to your hotel tomorrow, and as from Monday, make sure that this is the data you're collecting, make sure this is the metric that you're sharing with the team and that you're focusing on. What would be your one metric that you would give them? Angela?
It would be response time. Check how quickly people are responding to it, and if your M&E coordinators aren't responding fast, have a look at the distractions around them and try and help them remove those distractions so they can. a lot of the time, response time is key. Some planners will just go with the first venue that replies to them. We measured it for a while and we saw a direct increase in conversion because we were fast, and it does make a difference. So I'd say do that from tomorrow. Have a look at, tomorrow. How quick is team are responding to inquiries?
I would probably say delegate density, because I've got no comfort in a diary full of business with 2 or 3 people per room. You need to make sure you're maximising that meeting room every time that it's sold. You're not always going to have the demand to fill it to its optimum capacity, but on those occasions that you can, make sure you're not leaving right on the table and utilising that space the best that you can.
Thanks, Christine.
Controversially, I probably would say I personally wouldn't just look at one, because for me, from a bedroom perspective, you would never just look at ARI or MPI. You would look at a collection. And so I think that's what you have to be very careful with M&E, is that you do the same. And for me, I think where we've talked about revenue per square metre, density would be a key one, and general space utilisation. To see how are you maximising on the actual rooms and what you're doing and how you're using them and how you're selling them.
Thank you. And Amy.
Yeah, I really agree with Christine. I love revenue per square metre, but I agree it's all out of context if you're not looking at everything in one go. But I think probably to any sort of stakeholders or group owners in the room, I think one big sort of key takeaway would be to support and encourage your teams to start sharing more data and start sharing more of what is going on in your hotels or your stadiums or your venues or your groups, because that is the biggest blocker that we currently have, is that we are not sharing enough information, and therefore these KPIs are all going to be irrelevant without enough data to support it. So I think that's a really big takeaway I'd like to push, and that's really what we're all, why we created a lot of this group and why we're very passionate about it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got just about 1 minute to go, so thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Really good. Thank you.